My name is Hannah, and when I was only 22, I looked back on the moment when my world cracked wide open. It happened when I was 15 years old, the day I found out my own parents would not pay for the treatment that could save my life. Instead, they chose to spend that money on my older brother's education. Thankfully, my aunt stepped in and rescued me. But behind the scenes, I made a choice of my own, one that they would regret for years to come. If you've ever felt betrayed by the very people who were supposed to protect you, then you'll understand my story. I was still just a teenager when I realized something terrifying. My survival wasn't worth as much as a college degree. I can picture that moment perfectly. Even now, my mum sat across from me at the kitchen table, her hands folded neatly in front of her, as if we were deciding what to cook for dinner, not whether I would live or die. My dad stood behind her, arms crossed over his chest, silent as always. They had just gotten off the phone with the insurance company. I already knew the treatment wasn't going to be covered. I knew it would cost a lot. But I also honestly believed, that they had some savings. Not a fortune, but enough. They had mentioned it more than once, so I asked quietly, what happens now? My mum gave me that strangely calm look she always wore when she was about to deliver bad news. And then she said the words that made my heart stop. We've decided not to go ahead with the treatment. For a moment, I didn't even process what she meant. I thought maybe she was saying they wanted to double-check with another doctor or wait for more details. I was puzzled, not afraid. What are you talking about? I asked. She sighed, like I was dragging out a conversation she didn't want to have. Honey, your dad and I believe that if it's meant to be, God will find a way. I blinked at her, stunned. What? Then my dad finally opened his mouth. His voice was flat. We can't pour every cent we have into this. Evan starts college next year. His tuition, housing, his entire future, it's already lined up. We can't risk throwing all of that away. And for a second, I couldn't even breathe. I wasn't blind. I had always known Evan was their favorite. He was their pride, their golden son. He got the brand new clothes, the tutoring, the summer programs. I got what was left behind. But even with that, I never believed they would actually let me die. You're picking college over me. The words came out so small, I barely recognized my own voice. My mum's face twisted, almost offended. Don't put it like that. This isn't a choice. We're simply leaving it in God's hands. My chest pounded so hard, I could hear nothing else. I wanted to scream, to smash a glass, to sob until I couldn't breathe. But I didn't. I just stood up, walked to my room, and shut the door. That night, I didn't come out. They didn't bother to check on me, and that was the moment it became clear. If I wanted to live, I had to figure it out myself. So I opened my laptop and began searching. Can a minor disown their parents for medical neglect? Answer, yes. Would foster care provide health care? Answer, it can. Do kids in juvenile detention still receive medical treatment? And I'm not exaggerating when I say for a while, I truly considered committing a crime. Just serious enough to get me locked up, but not so bad that I'd be stuck forever. I figured jail had to have some kind of medical care, right? Sounds ridiculous now, but at the time I was desperate. I found out I could file for emancipation, but that usually required parental consent or a judge's ruling. That would take time I didn't have. There were shelters, but most were full or too far away. And I didn't want to end up living with some stranger. Then I thought of Aunt Linda, my mum's older sister. She lived about 40 minutes away in Denver. We didn't see her often. My parents used to talk about her like she was some sad little failure. They said she lived in a shoebox apartment and worked part-time tutoring kids who barely passed their classes. They laughed at her for never getting married, for spending her money on stray cats and takeout food. but I remembered her being kind. Every time we did see her, she made a point to talk to me. Not just small talk, but real talk. She looked at me like she actually saw me, so I didn't reach out. Not right away. I wasn't ready to ask for help. I just wanted to survive the night. I packed a bag, some clothes, my iPad charger. I took the little bit of cash I had hidden in a jar in my closet. Maybe $70 total. I waited until after midnight, listened to the creak of the hallway floorboards, the click of their bedroom door, and then I left. Just like that. I didn't leave a note. I didn't say goodbye. I walked 5 blocks before I found a bench near the 24-hour grocery store. I sat there for a long time just thinking. I thought about how I used to believe my parents loved me. Not the way they loved Evan, sure, but I thought maybe deep down they still cared. I thought about the way my mom held my hand when I was little, how she used to read me bedtime stories before Evan started middle school, and then I thought about my dad teaching Evan how to drive while I sat inside washing dishes. And now, when I needed them most, they had chosen to spend their money on someone else, not a stranger, not a neighbor, my own brother, and not for food or shelter or anything necessary, no, for college, as if that somehow mattered more than whether I lived to see 16. I sat on that bench until the sky started to lighten. I didn't cry. I just planned. I wasn't going back. Whatever happened next, whatever I had to do, wherever I had to go, I was going to find a way to stay alive without them. I didn't sleep that first night. I watched the sky change from black to grey, then gold as the sun came up. People passed me on the sidewalk, some with coffee cups, some walking dogs, a few in suits with their heads down. No one looked at me, and I think that's what hit me the hardest, that I was invisible. Just a girl on a bench with a backpack. No one stopped to ask if I was okay. Not that I expected them to. I was used to not being seen. I had gotten good at it, not in a sad, dramatic way, just in a quiet, practiced way. I knew how to disappear in plain sight, how to take up as little space as possible. That was what it had always been like at home. My parents weren't abusive in the way people expect. They didn't yell or hit me or lock me in a closet. They didn't need to. Ignoring someone completely, that's its own kind of violence. Evan, my older brother, was the star from the day he was born, and when I came along 2 years later, I was just an afterthought. They would never admit that out loud, of course. They'd smile and say they loved us equally, but it was a lie so thin you could see through it with your eyes closed. When Evan got sick, it was a family emergency. Everyone dropped what they were doing when I got sick. I was told to drink tea and get some rest when Evan won a science fair. My parents threw a party. When I placed second in a writing competition, my mum said, "That's nice, honey. Can you set the table now?" It wasn't just the big moments. It was the small, constant choices. The days after I left home blurred together. I bounced between couches, bus stations, and public libraries. My $70 ran out faster than I thought it would. I bought snacks, bottled water, bus fare. I stretched every dollar, but by the end of the week, I was down to a couple of crumpled bills. That's when I finally reached out to Aunt Linda. I remember standing at the payphone near the bus depot, hands shaking as I dialed her number from memory. My parents had drilled it into me that Linda was unreliable, that she made bad choices, that she couldn't even take care of herself. But when she picked up the phone and heard my voice, her tone was nothing but steady. "Hannah? Sweetheart, are you okay?" That single question undid me. No one had asked me that in weeks. I burst into tears, right there in the noisy bus station. I can't go back home," I whispered. Her voice softened. "Tell me where you are. I'm coming to get you." I gave her the address of the depot, and 40 minutes later, her little blue hatchback pulled up to the curb. She didn't ask 100 questions. She didn't demand to know why. She just opened the passenger door, pressed a warm hand against my shoulder, and said, "Let's get you fed." Linda's apartment wasn't glamorous. It really was small, just one bedroom, a worn couch, stacks of books on every surface. A couple of rescued cats darted under the furniture when we walked in, but to me, it felt like stepping into another world. There were no tense silences, no careful glances across the dinner table, no sense that every word might be judged or used against me. Linda made us grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup. The simplest meal, but when she slid the plate in front of me, I nearly cried again. After I ate, she asked gently, "What happened, Hannah?" And I told her everything, the diagnosis, the treatment, the insurance, the conversation at the kitchen table, the way my parents said they couldn't spend the money because they had to. Save it for Evan's tuition. Linda didn't interrupt. She didn't say, "Are you sure?" Or "Maybe you misunderstood." She just listened, and when I was done, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "They don't get to decide if you live or die," she said firmly. "We'll figure this out, together." That night, I slept on her couch. I can't explain the relief of lying down in a space where no one resented me. No one was angry I existed. No one was comparing me to someone else. I drifted off with the faint sound of her cats batting at toys in the corner, the smell of dish soap lingering in the air, the hum of her old fridge. It was the first time in months I felt safe. Over the next few weeks, Linda became my lifeline. She took me to doctor's appointments. She fought with the insurance company on the phone. She applied for financial aid programs I didn't even know existed. She even started a fundraiser online, something I didn't think anyone would care about. But people donated. Old neighbors, distant relatives, even strangers. Every time a notification came in $20, $50, $100, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't just about the money. It was proof that someone, somewhere, believed I was worth saving. And slowly, piece by piece, the treatment plan started to take shape. Meanwhile, my parents barely called. The first week, my mum left a voicemail saying, "We hope you're making smart choices. Don't do anything you'll regret." After that, nothing. Evan texted once, "Mom says you're being dramatic. Just come home." I didn't reply, because by then I knew exactly what home was. Home wasn't a place where people left you to die. Home was wherever someone fought for you. And right now, that was Linda's apartment. But here's the part no one knew at the time. Even as Linda was helping me get the treatment, I was planning something else. Something that would make sure my parents never forgot the choice they made. You see, I realized something in those long nights lying awake on her couch. If my own parents could decide my life was worth less than a tuition bill, then I didn't owe them loyalty. Not anymore. I didn't owe them gratitude for a roof I no longer lived under. I didn't owe them silence about what they had done. And I certainly didn't owe them forgiveness. So, I started keeping notes. Every conversation, every email, every voicemail, I documented it all because one day, I knew I'd tell my story. And when I did, I wanted proof. The first round of treatment nearly broke me. The pain was worse than I expected, the exhaustion bone deep. Some days, I couldn't lift my head off the pillow, but Linda was there. She brought water, soup, blankets. She sat with me through the worst nights, her hand resting lightly on mine so I wouldn't feel alone. I remember one night in particular when I whispered, "Why are you doing this for me?" She looked at me like I'd asked the silliest question in the world. "Because you're my niece. Because you matter. Because you deserve to live." And I believed her, maybe for the first time in my life. I believed someone when they said I mattered. Meanwhile, my parents kept posting about Evan online, pictures of his dorm room, his textbooks, his smiling face at orientation. Proud of our boy. The captions read, "Not a word about me, not a word about their daughter. Fighting for her life, 40 minutes away." And the more I saw it, the more something hardened inside me. I wasn't just going to survive. I was going to make sure the world knew what they had done. I started writing at first. It was just a journal. Pages filled with anger, sadness, confusion. But then it became something more. I started shaping it into a story. My story, I imagined standing in front of a room full of people and saying, "This is what happens when parents choose money over love. This is what it looks like when a child has to save herself." I didn't know yet how or where I'd share it, but I knew one day I would. And when that day came, my parents would finally see me, not as the daughter they dismissed, not as the shadow behind Evan's spotlight, but as the girl who survived without them. That thought kept me going, through the treatments, through the fatigue, through the moments when giving up seemed easier, every time I wanted to quit. I pictured the look on their faces when the truth came out, and I told myself, stay alive long enough to tell the story. Months passed in a rhythm that felt both endless and fragile. Treatment, rest, more. Treatment, repeat. Some days I woke up with enough energy to sit at the small table in Linda's kitchen, sipping coffee and working on my writing. Other days, I didn't leave the couch at all. But no matter how bad it got, Linda was always there. She didn't complain. She didn't act like I was a burden. She just folded me into her life like I belonged there, and slowly, I started to believe it. The fundraiser she set up gained more traction than either of us expected. People left comments, little notes of encouragement. Keep fighting. Hannah, you're stronger than you know. Don't give up, we're rooting for you. I would scroll through those messages late at night, tears burning my eyes. Strangers were showing me more love than my parents ever had. It was around this time that my mum tried calling. Again, I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. "Hannah, this has gone far enough. You need to come home. People are asking questions, and it doesn't look good. Think about your reputation. Think about ours." I listened to it once, then deleted it. Reputation, not my health. Not my survival. Reputation that told me everything I needed to know. A week later, Evan showed up at Linda's apartment. I heard the knock on the door and assumed it was the delivery guy. But when Linda opened it, there he was, standing awkwardly in the hallway with his backpack slung over one shoulder. "Hannah," he said. Spotting me on the couch, I sat up slowly, my chest tightening. "What are you doing here?" "I just wanted to see you." Linda gave me a questioning look, and I nodded. She stepped aside to let him in. Evan sat on the edge of the chair, glancing around at the cramped little apartment like he'd never been in a place this small before. "You look different," he said. "Yeah," I replied flatly. "That happens when you're in treatment." He shifted uncomfortably. "Mum and Dad are worried." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "No, they're worried about appearances. There's a difference." His jaw tightened. "That's not fair, not fair." My voice rose, cracking. "They chose your tuition over my life, Evan. Do you know what it feels like to hear that? To hear that your future matters more than whether I even exist." His face flushed. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Finally, he muttered, "It's not like I asked for that." And I believed him. I really did. He hadn't asked to be the favorite. He hadn't asked to be put on a pedestal while I was left in the shadows. But that didn't change the fact that he benefited from it. "Go back to college, Evan," I said quietly. "That's where they want you. That's where the money went. That's where the love went. Go enjoy it." He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. His eyes darted to Linda, who was watching silently from the doorway. "Fine," he muttered. "Do what you want." And then he left. The door closed behind him, and the silence that followed felt like a heavy weight pressing against my chest. I wanted to scream. I wanted to chase after him. I wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, my brother cared enough to fight for me, but he didn't, and that hurt almost as much as my parents' betrayal. After that visit, the distance between me and my family became permanent. I stopped waiting for calls. I stopped hoping for apologies instead. I focused on surviving. One night, when the pain kept me from sleeping, I sat at Linda's table with my notebook open in front of me. I wrote down a single sentence. When your parents choose someone else's future over your life, you stop being their child. The words shook me, but they also freed me, because it was true. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was something else, and that meant I could live without them. Treatment slowly began to work. The worst of the symptoms eased. I gained a little strength back. I could walk farther without feeling dizzy, could eat without getting sick. Linda celebrated every small victory. "Look at you," she'd beam when I managed to cook eggs by myself. "Back on your feet. That's my girl." Her pride was gentle, unconditional. The kind I used to dream of getting from my parents, and every time she said those words, it stitched something back together inside me. But as I healed, I also grew more determined. I couldn't just move on quietly. Too many kids went through what I had. Neglect disguised as faith, favoritism disguised as parenting, silence disguised as love. I wanted to give them a voice, so I started shaping my journal entries into a longer piece. I didn't know if it was a book or a blog, or maybe something I'd stand up and read one day. All I knew was this: my parents wanted me invisible, and I was done being invisible. The first time I shared a piece publicly, it was just a short post on social media. I wrote, at 15, "My parents chose my brother's tuition over my medical treatment. If not for my aunt, I wouldn't be here." To anyone else who feels like their life is worth less than someone else's dreams, you are wrong. You are worth fighting for. I didn't tag my parents. I didn't name names, but people knew. The post spread further than I expected. Friends from school commented. Neighbors shared it. Strangers sent messages saying, "Thank you for speaking up." I thought I was the only one, and for the first time, I felt powerful, not because I wanted revenge, but because my story mattered, because I mattered. That's when my mum finally called again. I didn't answer, but she left a voicemail. Her voice was sharp, controlled. "Hannah, you need to stop airing family business online. You're making us look terrible. Whatever you think happened, you're twisting it. You don't understand how hard this has been for us." I listened all the way through, then saved it, because right there, in her own words, was the truth. She didn't care about me. She cared about how she looked, and if she thought I was done telling my story, she was wrong. Linda saw me listening to the voicemail and asked, "What did she say?" I repeated it word for word. Linda shook her head, disgusted. "Of course. Not a single word about you, about your fight, about what you've been through. Just her reputation." I nodded slowly. "That's fine. Let her worry about her reputation. I'll worry about the truth." And I meant it. The day of the confrontation didn't come all at once. It built slowly through months of silence, through ignored calls, through the weight of everything left unsaid. But when it came hard. It started when my post about my story went viral. Not just a few hundred shares, this time, thousands, then tens of thousands. People reached out from everywhere, some who had been through the same kind of neglect. Some who just wanted to say, "We see you. We believe you. Keep going." And then a journalist reached out. She said, "Your story could help so many others. Would you be willing to do an interview?" I hesitated. Part of me was terrified. I knew if I did this, there would be no going back. My parents would see it. Their friends would see it. Their church would see it. But then I thought about all the nights I spent on that bench, invisible. I thought about the kids scrolling through their phones right now, wondering if anyone in the world understood their pain. And I said yes. The article published a week later. It didn't name my parents directly, but it didn't have to. Everyone who knew us recognized the story. The headline read, "When parents choose tuition over treatment, one teens fight to survive." The journalist quoted me directly. "If not for my aunt, I would be dead." My parents decided my brother's future mattered more than my life. The story spread fast. Some people praised me for speaking out. Others whispered that I should have kept quiet. But I didn't care. Because, for the first time in my life, I was standing in my own truth. That's when the call came. Not from my mum this time. From my dad. His voice was clipped, tense. "We need to talk, face to face." I almost laughed. Months of silence, and suddenly they wanted to. Talk because the world was watching. But something in me wanted the confrontation too, so I agreed. We met at a diner halfway between Linda's apartment and their house. I walked in with Linda by my side. My parents were already seated in a booth, Evan sitting stiffly beside them. When my mum saw me, her face softened into a practiced smile. "Hannah, you look well." I slid into the seat across from them. Linda sat beside me, calm and steady. My dad wasted no time. "This has to stop. The posts, the interviews, you are making us look like monsters." I stared at him, stunned. That was the first thing out of his mouth. Not, "How are you?" Not, "We're glad you're alive." No, just image. "You don't need me to make you look like monsters," I said quietly. "You did that yourselves." My mum bristled. "That's not fair. You don't understand the pressure we were under. We had to think about Evan's future, about the whole family, the whole family." I cut her off, my voice trembling. "I was the family. I was your daughter, and you left me to die." The words hung in the air, sharp and unshakable. Evan looked down at the table, his hands twisting in his lap. My dad's jaw tightened. "We did what we thought was right." "No," I snapped. "You did what was easy. You chose the child who made you proud, the child who didn't inconvenience you, and you abandoned the one who did." My mum's eyes welled with tears. "Hannah, please no," I said again, stronger this time. "You don't get to cry about this. You don't get to rewrite what happened. You made a choice, and I survived in spite of it. Not because of you." The diner went silent around us. I could feel people staring, but I didn't care. For the first time, I was saying it out loud. My dad's face hardened. "So what now? You just cut us out of your life. Pretend we don't exist." I took a deep breath. My hands shook under the table, but my voice stayed steady. "You already cut me out. You did that the moment you put money above my life. I don't have to pretend you don't exist. I just have to accept that you don't exist for me." My mom let out a strangled sob. "We're still your parents." "No," I whispered. "Parents protect their children. Parents fight for them. You didn't. Linda did. She's the one who saved me. You just saved your bank account." Evan finally spoke, his voice low. "Hannah, I'm sorry." I turned to look at him, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger, just sadness. "I know you didn't ask for any of this, Evan, but you let them sacrifice me for you. and you stayed quiet. That silence hurt almost as much as their choice. His face crumpled, but he said nothing more. I stood up then. I didn't come here to forgive you. I came here to tell you the truth. You don't get to rewrite it. You don't get to hide from it. You chose, and now, so have I. Linda rose beside me, her hand light on my shoulder. My mum reached across the table, desperate. Hannah, wait, but I pulled back. I already have a family, I said softly. And it's not you. Then I walked out. The night air hit me like a wave of freedom. For the first time in years, I felt weightless. Linda squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you, she whispered, and I believed her because I had finally spoken the words that needed to be said. In the years that followed, I kept writing. I kept speaking. My story reached people I never thought it would. Kids messaged me saying, "Thank you." I thought I was alone, and every time I told them the same thing. You are not alone. Your life matters. You are worth fighting for. As for my parents, they faded from my world. They tried, for a while, to reach out. But it was never about MIT. It was always about their reputation, their discomfort, their guilt, and I didn't need any of that. I had already built something better. I had built a life, so now. When I look back, I don't just remember the night. I sat at that kitchen table and realized my parents would let me die. Remember the moment I chose myself, the moment I walked out of their house and into my aunt's, the moment I realized that family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up when you need them most, and the moment I spoke the truth out loud, in that diner, and finally let go of the weight I'd been carrying. My name is Hannah, and I survived not because of the people who were supposed to protect me, but because I found the courage to protect myself, and that will always be enough.